Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I'm your host Ghadi Francis, coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon, and this is WION's weekly show where we bring you all things new from the world's most volatile region, West Asia. Will the Israelis achieve victory in Rafah? Well, the United States of America doesn't think so. In this episode, we will question if the Israelis will reach their end goal in Rafah in Gaza Strip. Also on the show, what is happening in the democracy of Kuwait and the first local beer brewery in the Arabian Gulf. We have a lot lined up for you, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Turkish court sentences former head of a pro-Kurdish party to 42 years in prison for his alleged role in the deadly 2014 protests, triggered by the Islamic State group overrunning the Syrian town of Kobani. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls war in Gaza as an open wound at the Arab League in Manama, Bahrain, reiterates his defense of a two-state solution to end the war. Palestine women's football team beats Bohemian FC in a historic match in Dublin's Dalymount Park. Nearly 8 months of war in the Gaza Strip, and there are no signs of truce in sight. Now, the Americans are still backing the Israelis. They are denying any genocide, unlike many world leaders. But Washington still is skeptical that Israel would achieve total victory in this war. Now, in the next report, we question the end goal of the Rafah operation. Take a look.
We are doing this even as the civilian population is being evacuated and while fulfilling our obligation towards humanitarian needs. Our latest efforts are bearing fruit. As of now, in Rafah, almost 500,000 people have been evacuated from the areas of fighting. The humanitarian catastrophe that has been spoken of has not been realized, nor will it. Eliminating Hamas is an essential step in order to ensure that on the day after, there will be no element in Gaza that can threaten us.
Ever since Hamas launched its October 7th assault on Israel, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly vowed to achieve a total victory against the militant group. However, the Biden administration believes that the goal to entirely defeat Hamas and achieve total victory in the Palestinian enclave is highly unlikely. Washington has put a question mark over Israel's future plans for Gaza.
We've been very clear that when it comes to the future of Gaza, we do not support and will not support an Israeli reoccupation. We also, of course, do not support Hamas governance in Gaza. We know and have seen where that's led all too many times for the people of Gaza and for Israel. And we also can't have anarchy and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos. That only underscores the imperative of having a clear, concrete plan for the day after the conflict in Gaza in terms of governance, in terms of security, in terms of rebuilding Gaza for its people.
Israel's defense minister has himself challenged Netanyahu's post-war Gaza plan. Yoav Gallant said that he had presented a blueprint for Gaza's future, which has not evoked any response.
Already in October, on the night of our military maneuver into Gaza, the defense establishment presented its war plan to the cabinet, stating that it will be necessary to destroy Hamas battalions, while simultaneously working to establish a local, non-hostile Palestinian governing alternative. Since October, I have been raising this issue consistently in the cabinet and have received no response.
The rift in the Israeli cabinet over Gaza is out in the open. There seems to be a growing polarity within the United States' political circles as well. The Republican-led US House of Representatives passed a bill on Thursday that would force President Joe Biden to send weapons to Israel. This rebuke comes after the Biden administration halted a major weapon shipment to Israel over concerns of fearsome Rafah operation. The UK also seems to be in alignment with US's Republicans. Britain claims that so far no red line has been crossed by Israel in its war with Hamas.
The assessment that we undertake for arms export controls is one of the most rigorous in the world, and we take into account a wide range of factors. The Foreign Secretary undertakes that analysis and has set out the position that we are comfortable continuing with those exports. No single action represents a red line. As the Foreign Secretary set out a few days ago, we're confident with continuing.
However, countries across the globe are not in alignment with the UK's take on the Gaza war. South Africa, Egypt and Turkey have joined hands against genocide in the Gazan Strip. South Africa has appealed to the World Court to put a full stop to the ongoing Israeli assault.
The key point today is that Israel's declared aim of wiping Gaza from the map is about to be realized. Further, evidence of appalling crimes and atrocities is literally being destroyed and bulldozed, in effect wiping the slate clean for those who've committed these crimes and making a mockery of justice.
Egypt and Israel are trading blame over blocked Gaza aid. The rift has come to a point where Egypt wants to abandon its role as a mediator for ceasefire talks.
We found Israel continuing to escape its responsibilities and evade efforts exerted to reach a ceasefire, but instead it is moving forward in its military operation that is rejected in Rafah, as well as attempting to use Rafah crossing from its Palestinian side to tighten the siege on the enclave.
On Monday, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan reiterated his stance that Hamas was a resistance movement. He even said that Hamas members are currently being treated in hospitals across the country.
I never see Hamas as a terrorist organization, and as of this moment, I follow Hamas step by step. And in my country right now, more than 1,000 Hamas members are in our hospitals, all of them undergoing treatment.
As the war in Gaza rages on, Palestinians marked their Nakba anniversary on Wednesday. It has been 76 years since Israel declared its independence, and 76 years since 700,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes. In present-day Gaza, Palestinians claim that they are experiencing another catastrophe, or Nakba, which is much worse than the previous one.
This Nakba of 2023-2024 is harder than the previous Nakbas. There was a Nakba in 1967 and another in 1948. The Palestinian people won't recover from this Nakba for the next 10 years.
Palestinians in Gaza, Palestinians in the West Bank, Palestinian refugees in general have only one lifeline, one agency, the UNRWA. And its volunteers are being killed, assassinated, attacked, and its offices are being shut down. Now, Benjamin, for years, what is his problem with UNRWA? Our next report breaks it down for you.
The United Nations has lost its first international staffer since the Israeli forces declared war in Gaza. Vaibhav Anil Kale, a retired Indian Army official, was driving to the European hospital in Rafah when tank fire struck the vehicle, killing him instantly. While Israeli authorities say they are investigating the incident, the UN says only Israeli tanks were present in Rafah. Of the hundreds of UN staff present in Gaza, currently 71 are international staff members. The UN chief, Antonio Guterres, said close to 190 of the agency's employees have been killed since October 7 last year. In April, the Israeli forces killed 7 aid workers from the World Central Kitchen, 6 of whom were international volunteers. While all humanitarian agencies are scrambling to distribute aid in Gaza in the face of grave danger, there is one organization that has historically been at the receiving end of Israeli hostility: the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinians. Israel's incessant military onslaught may be limited to Gaza and at times the West Bank, but the UNRWA, the sole UN agency for Palestinians, has frequently come under attack in other parts of the region as well. The UN Aid Agency for Palestinians has now closed its headquarters in Jerusalem after the facility came under attack this past week. Parts of the office compound were set on fire twice, the second act of arson dangerously close to the agency's fuel depot, posing the threat of a massive explosion.
Since the 7th of October, there's been definitely an escalation of tension against UNRWA, attacks on UNRWA. Not only the physical attacks that we saw last night, the fire, but also a few days ago there was a demonstration that became very violent with destruction of our property outside of this compound. But generally, across the West Bank, the office that I'm responsible for, we've seen a lot of hostility, tensions, staff being removed from cars and detained and threatened because people are very, very agitated.
The attack is the latest in a series of the attempts by the Israeli government and settlers alike who are trying to pressure the agency to shut its operations. In February this year, Israel had accused 130 UNRWA volunteers of having links to Hamas. The Netanyahu administration went as far as to even claim that 12 workers were involved in the October 7 attacks by Hamas. So far, Israel has not provided any evidence to substantiate its claim. What makes matters interesting is that Netanyahu's push to disband UNRWA is not new. For years now, the Israeli leader has been trying to shut down the agency's operations in Gaza. On June 11, 2017, Netanyahu called for the UN agency to be dismantled. He claimed that UNRWA supported anti-Israeli sentiments. The leader also accused UNRWA of quote-unquote perpetuating a refugee problem. But what is the sticking point about the agency that irks Benjamin Netanyahu? UNRWA allows Palestinian refugee men to transfer their refugee status from one generation to another. This key provision gives Palestinians the right to fight for their eventual return to Gaza. The clause ensures that generations do not lose all hope to return to their ancestral land after the death of the original refugees who were forcibly displaced during the 1948 Nakba. 76 years ago, the creation of Israel was not the only event with profound consequences for the region. Israel's call for independence resulted in thousands of Palestinians becoming refugees in their own land. Over 750,000 Palestinians were displaced in 1948 alone, and that number has only increased over the years. The only shred of hope ever since has been the UNRWA, that was established by the UN General Assembly in 1949. Currently, over 5 million Palestinians are registered as refugees with the agency, all of whom someday wish to return home. And the person getting in the way of this critical provision remaining intact is Benjamin Netanyahu.
It is time for our break, but stay tuned. We have a lot more to tell you after that short break. We'll be back.
This week on Inside South Asia. Wave upon wave of massive protests in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir forces Pakistan to fork out $86 million for the region. But will residents of exploited POK be mollified? India inks 10-year deal to operate Iran's Chabahar port. US warns of potential risk of sanctions. Decoding New Delhi's series of concessions for Mali despite distinct anti-India, pro-China moves by the Maldives under President Muizu. Over 3,000 people killed as flash floods ravage northern Afghanistan, picking up the pieces an uphill task. This and more on Inside South Asia.
This week on WION E-Club, we tell you about India's history at the ongoing Cannes Film Festival.
At last,
Find out all about the Bridgerton franchise as the new season of the hit show starts streaming online. And meet the Indian actor-producer duo Rajkumar Rao and Nidhi Hiranandani as they talk about their latest movie, Shrikant. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, on WION at these times.
This week on Melt, all about artificial intelligence and marketing, from ambiguities and challenges to successful implementation examples. And yes, even its impact on your job.
AI is in its very early stages, and we got to be comfortable with the fact that we don't have all the answers right now.
The human element is absolutely essential in ensuring that we are ethical in how we leverage AI.
I actually see AI being able to complement the marketer in helping him or her understand better about the consumer needs.
Welcome back, I'm Radi Francis and this is the West Asia Post. After we have spoken in the first segment about the Gulf region, Palestine, now it is time to speak about Turkey. Turkey and Greece are NATO allies, but on a historic front, the two nations have been historically foes. Now maybe the tides are turning. In the recent, it looks like diplomatic pathways are opening. Even the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has invited his counterpart from Greece. We tell you more in this report.
Despite being NATO allies, Turkey and Greece have always had differences on issues ranging from maritime boundaries, energy resources, flights over the Aegean Sea, and the division of Cyprus. This week's visit of Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis to Ankara was thus an opportunity to bury the differences and reiterate support for each other. After years of tensions that even brought the two to the brink of conflict, especially after their re-election last year, both have been taking high-profile steps to improve ties.
When I was in Athens in December, I had shared with you my belief that there are no problems between Turkey and Greece that are so large that they are unsolvable. This is a process. To get more results, it needs to be carried forward meticulously.
Looking towards the many things that unite us, we wish to intensify our bilateral contacts in the coming period to continue under the coordination of our two foreign ministers this positive path we are on for the last year.
During Erdogan's visit to Athens last December, the two nations signed the Declaration of Athens that served as a foundation to re-establish relations. The two nations decided to increase commerce, maintain open lines of communication, and take military confidence-building actions to lower tensions and address issues that kept them apart. However, The two leaders have notably disagreed on the classification of the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Erdogan is calling it a resistance movement, claiming he was saddened by the Greek view, shared by other Western countries, that it is a terrorist organization. Let's agree to disagree, was Mitsotakis' response. However, despite their stark disagreements about the Israel-Hamas war, Erdogan and Mitsotakis say they are determined to prevent more instability in the region.
Now let's go to the Gulf region, in particular to Kuwait. A political turmoil is really hitting the Gulf nation. Now, the Emir of Kuwait has ordered to dissolve the parliament for up to 4 years. The question is Kuwait going towards an autocracy? Take a look.
Days after dissolving the parliament, Kuwaiti Emir Sheikh Mishal Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah issued a royal decree to form the Gulf nation's 46th new government. It made the Emir's nephew, Sheikh Ahmad Al-Abdullah Al-Sabah, the head of the new government as its prime minister. The new cabinet has 13 ministers. 9 have secured seats from the previous government. Kuwait is the only Gulf nation with an elected parliament. But on Friday, in a surprise move, the Kuwaiti Emir suspended the state's National Assembly and several articles of the constitution. Emir also said that the nation's democratic process will be under review.
We did this in order to achieve this goal by stopping the decline and preventing to reach the stage of collapse. So, we ordered the following: the dissolution of the National Assembly and the suspension of some articles of the Constitution for a period of no more than 4 years, during which all aspects of the democratic process will be studied, and the results of the study will be submitted and reviewed for us to take whatever we consider appropriate.
The royal decree suspended 7 articles. They include Article 107 that stipulates a new parliament within 2 months of its dissolution, Article 181 that prohibits the suspension of the parliament or the immunity of its members. Further, the decree gives the Emir and his cabinet all the powers of the parliament during this transitional period. With this masterstroke, the Emir currently has full control over the legislation. Analysts fear the parliament has been effectively dissolved for 4 years and will impact the nation's unique semi-democratic political system. Given Kuwaiti history, government reshuffles are not a new thing. The now dissolved parliament was elected in early April. At the time, opposition leaders in Kuwait secured a majority of the seats, and they have been wanting to change the current political system. The April elections were the 3rd since 2022 and the 4th in 5 years. Since 2005, Kuwait parliament has been dissolved 12 times. But the parliament has been suspended only twice in 1976 and 1986. The lawmakers and the cabinet are engaged in a battle of attrition. The lawmakers accuse the cabinet of corruption, while the cabinet blames the parliament for blocking developmental plans. This tug of war has reportedly prevented Kuwait from tapping into international debt markets. Kuwait is a major oil producer. It has 8.2% of the world's oil reserves and a production capacity of 3.15 million barrels a day. Another sticking point has been the selection of the Crown Prince. The Emir has accused officials of stalling him from appointing a Crown Prince. Kuwait is the only Gulf monarchy with an elected parliament. Known as the National Assembly, the parliament was established in 1963. It has 50 members who serve 4-year terms. The legislature can question and submit no-confidence motions against cabinet ministers, and also approved the Emir's appointment of a new Crown Prince. But with the latest development, the question is Kuwait moving towards autocracy?
A capital city of the United Arab Emirates is making its own beer. This happened recently, and today we will take you through the Gulf's first pub that makes its own local, one and only beer. Let's go!
For years, there have been restrictions on alcohol consumption in the United Arab Emirates. Now Abu Dhabi has got its first brewery. Known as the Craft Pub, it is the only licensed microbrewery in a region that is generally as dry as its desert climate. The brewery is owned by a 42-year-old American. The UAE has gradually relaxed its alcohol-related rules. Just last year, Dubai scrapped a 30% tax on alcohol and removed charges on the permits that allowed non-Muslims to use its licensed stores. In 2021, Dubai became the only emirate to allow licensed places for brewing beer. The rules stipulated that beer may be served only on these premises. Rules are slowly changing elsewhere. A few hours' drive from Abu Dhabi lies Saudi Arabia. The birthplace of Islam has just one licensed alcohol store, and it is only open to non-Muslim foreign diplomats. This in turn has prompted speculation that it might further relax alcohol laws in future. Abu Dhabi is in competition with Dubai, which is recognized as the UAE's vacation and party capital. It has a friendlier international profile. Abu Dhabi hopes to draw roughly 40 million tourists by 2030, up from 24 million just last year.
That's all we have for you in this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I'm your host, Ghadi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yowon.com.
Know more?